in boxing, the thing I liked about it personally is just that it's you and this other guy opposite you in the other corner.
You've not only done that, you've gone on the Homes Under the Hammer.
Yep, that was a big one.
That's a big feat, mate. So talk me through that.
Behind every like successful, powerful man, there's an equivalent woman on the other side.
So on today's episode, we have Craig Sullivan, property developer and student accommodation, HMO accommodation expert. So Craig, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me what it's like for yourself growing up as a child. Because I always say these episodes, we always strip it right back to the beginning and we get to know the person. And it fascinates me why and how you've got to the position you are today.
Okay, so I'd say the reason why I'm in property is because of my old man, basically.
Okay.
So from a young age, I saw him accumulate wealth. He'd go the old school kind of traditional model of buying the family house. It was a bit of a shithole, to say the least, but then that's what he loved, because he knew that's where he could get the value added on it. And he would renovate that to a high spec. He'd then sell it on, move on to a bigger house or in a better location and just replicate it. And as I was growing up in that environment, he'd get me to come on, start off with like little things like painting, then it was like plastering, then it was basic electrics, basic plumbing, roofing, guttering, you name it. And at the time I was just probably thinking, oh, this is just me helping my dad out, just to get a little bit of cash. But now I reflect on it, it was like giving me the tools and the experience and the know-how to build up my repertoire of skills to apply it what I do today. So that was kind of where I cut my teeth on property as a youngster.
What about before? I mean, because whilst property is amazing and everyone loves and wants to get the passive income as such, I want to know who you really are. Because
you sure?
That's what this was about, mate. This is what it's about. Because let's go back further than that. Because what was it like growing up in school for you?
So school was an interest for us. I didn't really like school. Be brutally honest, I was a bit of the class clown. I didn't like it at all. It just wasn't interested, mate. I was more interested in having a laugh with my mates. Football was a big part of school, and sports. And then as I started to grow up into my teenage years, girls started to become a part of that. And then going back to my dad, he moved into an area where obviously I needed a school, and the only school I could get into was in Ramsgate, was the school called the Ramsgate School, and that was statistically the worst school in England. And people say, oh yeah, I went to a shit school, but this was the shittest school. And the environment in that school was completely different to anything that I'd experienced. Like, it was I was always surrounded by poverty. It was just off a council estate, if you know Ramsgate. It was just off like a council estate in Newington, which was quite notorious for being quite rough. So that's kind of where my secondary school experience come from. And it was a completely different vibe. So it was all about being streetwise. The older kids who you'd look up to, always like the hardest kids in school. You'd be surrounded like by poverty, crime, violence, and it was just a bit of a daunting experience going in there.
What was it like growing up in that environment?
It was tough. I'd say it's quite tough. Like, it's taught me how to be streetwise, which was probably the main thing from it. But you wouldn't go there to be academic. Like, it was that kind of talk wasn't a thing. I think statistically, if I remember rightly, it was like 5% of the year left with GCSEs A to C or above, which was like, that's why it was the worst in England. It's been rebranded now to an academy, because that's what they do with schools that underperform. They rebrand them, so I think it's called the Marlow Academy now. So no not dissing anyone who goes there, but talking about my year, that's what it was all about. And I think that's kind of what it was like. It was a bit daunting, a bit scary, to the point where we'd have I remember quite vividly, one day it was just like it was called like National Fight Day. And basically what you do is there'd just be a mob of us, above about 50 of us. We'd go around the school, different years, And if you had a problem with someone, you just have a fight there and then. It was insane. Yeah, it was crazy. And you just have a tear up. And that was just like one of the memories that stands out, where I just think, fucking hell, this school is something else. Yeah. So
What about your relationship with your family as well? Like you mentioned your dad a lot.
Yeah, so solid. It's solid. Like again, that was something that kind of, I think if I would have stayed in that environment, again, my friends at that time, I had a good friend of mine. I won't mention his name, but he's quite notorious. He's he's abroad. He's wanted by the police, and that was like my best friend. We went on holiday together. I went on another holiday with a guy, not who went to that school, but went to another school. He's done some time for some serious crimes. But yeah, that was kind of the people that I was in circles with at that time. And I think my dad saw that I was going to these like council estates when he was dropping me off to like gatherings and parties, house parties and that. And that's why he was like, no, you're coming to work with me part-time on weekends, and I'm going to build up your skill set. So yeah, that's what, like, now that you've asked it, it's on reflection, it's kind of like, yeah, my dad kind of saw it and he was like, no, you're coming with me, son, and I'm going to get you out of that.
What about the relationship with your mum?
Mum, she's cool. Yeah, she's very social. And that's kind of where I get a lot of my like sass from, I'd say. Like she's quite, she's a proper people person. Well, my dad's just like head down, graft, and he'll just let the results do the talking. Well, mum's quite a social person, gets everyone involved in the room, and really like outgoing extrovert. Where my dad's kind of a bit of an introvert. Yeah, I'd say.
Would you class yourself as an introvert?
I'd say I'm more extrovert. Like I like that. Like I said, growing up, I like to be not centre of attention, but I like to be a presence. You know, I like to get to know people in the room and try to inspire people and just try to be a bit of a joyous person where someone could leave the room and say, oh, I like that guy. He gave me some good value or good vibe or made me feel positive about myself. That's the kind of person I want to be. Or project, you know?
And I think you do, mate. I think it's very important to realise that even whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, what background you come from, it really doesn't matter, that you can always project value in different ways, in different forms. Just touching on what you said there about your sort of upbringing and your sort of experiences, you've come from sort of a council estate, rough background. Did you ever feel the feeling to prove yourself to your dad?
A little bit. So looking back, I would say my dad always had like nice houses and stuff like that, and so I probably think I wanted to make him proud more than anything. Not prove myself, just to make him proud, and hopefully I've done that. Like, he's never said it, like he's not like that way inclined, but I just thought the skill set that he gave me, and then the opportunity that I saw when I went to uni, I thought, okay, this is it. Like, my dad's given me these skills. I saw an opportunity for high-end accommodation, and I went all in. And then I got my dad involved on my first project, and that's where he really taught me, and really jumped in, helping me on how to renovate it. And that was kind of a bonding thing. That was how we bonded. I think, looking back on it, which was quite nice. But yeah, in terms of did I have to prove myself? I wouldn't say I have to prove myself. I think I'd be disappointed. I'd be hurt if he thought I was a disappointment in any way. Anyone in my family. But I think us as a unit, I'm quite fortunate to still have my mum and dad together. I know a lot of families split up. I've got a younger sister. She's really close to my mum and my dad. So yeah, I think the reason why I was able to separate myself out of that school environment was because of the moral compass that I learned from mum and dad. I think that's where it really starts, and then it does, and then you can kind of go astray once you meet friends. But as long as you've got a good family unit, your moral compass is kind of.
I'm glad you said that as well, because there's that's quite a powerful saying what you just said, because whether you've come from a council background or not. A lot of the people that I speak to have come from, or successful people that have come from I say successful, it's wrong, people that have had success in property or business, if they've come from a council estate background or housing association, wherever that may be, they have often felt like I've had to prove themselves just to get out of that environment and then become a success. But they've not had the family unit. So, myself included in that. So my family unit wasn't together, but my drive, my ambition was to never go back. So that was often the case for me. It wasn't to prove to someone else, it was to prove to myself. And I know there's other people been sat in that chair there. I've gone, do you know what, I'm doing it because I'm not going back to that environment. I don't want to go back to that environment. I'm going to prove to me and the family, and again, I know you've got your own family now, that you don't want them to be brought up in that environment.
No, far from it. Because like I said, with those friends, you saw some nasty things, sad things, and I wouldn't want that with Sienna. I want her to be a million miles away from that. And I know people say, oh, that's what made you who you are today, and I get that. But I think if I'm in a position to offer her a route to bypass that, then so be it. I think if she's got my my characteristics in terms of business, which I'm hopefully going to drill into Sienna, then she's going to go on to achieve a lot. And I'm not going to hand anything to her. She's got to earn it with me. I've said that to Danielle, and she's with that as well. But yeah, I think if anything, I want to put her into private education, and just trying to push her just to see how far she can go, and obviously help with the wealth that I've built. Because ultimately, I'm not going to take it to the grave, am I? So I might as well.
I agree, mate. I agree. So tell me what happened after school.
So after school, I basically had a plumbing apprentice lined up. So my dad sorted that out, and I got surprisingly some good grades, which shocked me, to be honest. So I went to sixth form, and then that's when I thought, do you know what, I'm gonna not do the traditional like family do the building thing. I'm gonna go to uni and see what doors that opens. And it's funny how, because I've ended up in property anyway, but in a different route. So yeah, basically I went to sixth form, done well there, really knuckled down, really thought, right, I've got to make this, because it was a step up, and I surrounded myself with a different environment. I've gone from the worst school in England, surrounded by like people that didn't want to learn. They just wanted to probably smoke weed, play football, play games, like deal drugs. That was kind of the mentality. To people that, this is kind of like we're driven, we're looking 5 years, 10 years, this is where we want to go. So it's a completely different mind shift, and I like that. And I thought, I'm buying into this. I can see where this is going. And I was speaking to people and talking to them about their goals, and they're like, yeah, we're going to go to uni. I want to be a radiographer, or I want to be like a football coach. It was that kind of talk, which was completely alien in that environment. So I bought into it. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I did business studies at university. But part of the university was to have a year in industry. Okay. So yeah, that was it. So sixth form was like this. I remember partying a lot in sixth form, just like because I got exposed to alcohol. I started boxing as well in sixth form. Okay. Really, I enjoyed boxing, and that was another kind of thing that I really enjoyed and really focused on and really dedicated myself to. And then I got exposed to alcohol, and it all went downhill from there.
Yeah, tell me about that. What happened there?
So boxing, went to Ramsgate football boxing club. Met a gentleman called Chris Daly, and he was a boxing coach, and he was really inspirational. Like, he's a bit of a hero, to be honest, because again, with boxing, it's all about self-discipline. And I loved it, because ultimately with team sports, obviously there's room for error with everyone else, but in boxing, the thing I liked about it personally is just that it's you and this other guy opposite you in the other corner. That's it. There's no excuses. If you've lost, it's down to you being unfit, not putting the work in, whatever, or him having more skill or ability. But I like that. So I enjoyed it. And again, coming from that streetwise background, if you can learn how to use your hands, you can kind of handle yourself in the most of situations. Not that I'd go out looking for fights, but if it ever came at me, I can handle myself. So I enjoyed it. I love getting fit. I love the running aspect, the fitness, and obviously when you're part of a club, that is a bit of a team. And I got started putting into competitions. Ended up having 5 bouts. Lost my last one to the Southern County Champion of Kent, even though I felt like I won it. It was one of those things, it was his show, and it went to split decision, and the ref gave it to him, which I thought fair enough. But then after that, that's when I went to uni, and then I went to St Mary's Boxing Club, and that was hardcore. And basically, because they're quite renowned for churning out some good boxers, they said, look, if you want to do this semi-pro or pro, you've got to train like 5 days a week. And obviously at that point, I've trying to do a degree, I've got a part-time job, I've got a relationship at the time with like a serious girlfriend, so I just thought, oh no, I can't do it to that level. So it kind of just fizzled out, and I just focused on the uni and on the side hustle, which was like an online e-commerce thing that I was doing, selling clothes. So I focused on that, and that's kind of where I got my deposit stashed for my first project. So yeah, that's kind of like the timeline from.
When you was growing up, you said something there that just literally triggered something for me. You had to learn how to use your hands. Was you ever taught by your family members how to do it? Or growing up in the environment you grew up in, was it a case of, no shit, I've got to learn how to use them like now?
Not really. Like, my dad's not a fighter. He'd say, look, if anyone like tries to belittle you in any way, you stand up to him. But he wasn't a fighter. He'd like, yeah, he'd have a go, he'd shout, scream, and I rarely hear him lose his shit. Do you know what I mean? Unless it was something bad. But yeah, it was just seeing people like in the school, like people would get like, I saw someone get stabbed with what's it called, a compass. Someone got stabbed like 3 spaces away from me in the class. That was really bad. It's just stuff like that. You just think, fuck, like they were helpless. And at least with boxing, you learn a skill. Like as much as it's offense in terms of, you know, how to like throw a punch and stuff like that, you can also defense. So it's blocking, ducking, using your feet work. That was a major thing. And because of my weight, I used to box at welterweight. So that was quite like so it's all about speed, and that's what I enjoyed. Really enjoyed it. But yeah, no one really taught me how to fight. But it was more of just show some respect. Don't be an idiot and look for trouble. Otherwise, you're just gonna, it's just not gonna end well for you. But the reason why I did boxing in particular is, one, I had a good coach. He was brilliant. And it was making me fit, which I enjoyed doing. And I just felt that it gave me a little bit more of an edge of using my hands to protect myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you got to, if you've been exposed to that kind of environment, I think you need to. And there's, again, a lot of people that do listen to the podcast that are in an environment that shouldn't let their hands go in a certain situation, but if they can protect themselves, they should. Mm-hmm. So you've moved into property at this point?
Yep.
So where was your first project?
So my first one was on Skinner Street in Gillingham. So this was an auction purchase.
Yeah.
So this was at the height of the financial crisis at auction. So we literally got it ready and completed on September 15th, which was the exact day Lehman Brothers collapse. So it's literally on the official day, which I'll never forget because I just think it's quite funny. For the first project, it's like it's just all gone down south. Yeah. But so the history of that was, I found this project and I was looking for ages because basically I saw a big gap in the market. My house at uni was absolutely shocking. It was like, the best way to describe it is, you'd walk in, it's magnolia walls, brown carpet, the furniture looked like a charity shop. It was horrendous. It was to the point where my mum cried when she dropped me off. She was like, I can't let. It was a single bed. It was just rough. All the kitchen was old. The bathroom suite was just like original, like tiles. It was disgusting. It was just a rough house. And the reason why we had this landlord stock, my understanding was the halls wasn't built yet. So the halls were being built, but they weren't ready in time. So we had me and all my friends and all my housemates, we had this housing stock, all private rented housing stock. And so obviously when we went to parties and stuff, I was going into houses and it was the same story. It was just like, God, this is rough. Like, this is a bit of a shit show in here. And it wasn't just the housing stock that was shit. It was also the service. So the level of service, to the point where we'd have a maintenance number to call whenever something was wrong. We'd call it and it would just go straight to an answer phone. And I was quite handy at that point because I learned a lot from my dad. So I'd try and do what I could at the time. And it got to the point where even my friends were calling me Lou, saying, "Oh, Craig, our boiler's gone down. Can you come round and top it up?" And I was like, "Mate, I'm pretty sure that's what your landlord's job's meant to be doing." So yeah, that's kind of that's where the kind of seed was planted, and I thought there's a gap here. And then I remember it as if it was yesterday. I sat down at my mate's table. I think we're doing pre-drinks or something, and he had the local paper, and I just opened it up on the property section, and I just was looking at the house prices, and I thought, oh, that house is round the corner, that house is round the corner, and they were like 90 grand, like 100 grand. These are 3-bedroom houses for like 90 to 100 grand. And I'm thinking, and we're paying like 400 a room. And then that's when I ran it past my dad, and I thought, I swear we're making there's some good returns to be made here. He was like, yeah, that's pretty good. And so we had like a dialogue over the phone, because at this point he'd moved to Ireland. So it was just me. So my mum and dad moved me to Gillingham. And at that point, my dad was like, right, we're off to Ireland. And my dad was going to start a building company over there, and like a property renovation company. Obviously, that didn't pan out because of the economy. So, but he started it, and at that point, that's when I was like, Dad, look, you've got to buy me a house, or help me buy a house, because A, this is crap, and B, I think we can make some good money from it, even if it's just and the plan was to buy the first one for me next year, live in it, and then once I've finished my degree, we'll sell it at a profit. Jobs are good. That's not how it kind of panned out, but that was the plan. And so, yeah, I saw this house at auction, rang my dad. I remember he was on site somewhere, and I said, Dad, I found this house. It's perfect. We can make it into a 4-bed. It's at auction. And the guide price was like 120. And my dad was like, yeah, okay, cool. If you're serious, you said you've got the deposit, let me know and we'll go from there. And I said, right, cool. So true to my word, on that day, I said, Dad, I'm going to the auction. And he was like, whoa, what are you talking about? I said, you know that house I told you about 3 weeks ago. Auction day's today. I've taken today off class. I'm going up there to buy it. And he was like, whoa, like, hold on. So just so we're clear, have you registered? And I said, yeah, I've registered, because you have to be 18 and you have to show proof of funds, which I did. And he's like, who are you using for the solicitor? So I said, well, you told me. And he's like, oh yeah. So he just didn't think I'd go through with it, basically. And so there I was, 20 years old in this auction room, the youngest guy in there with my little card. And lo and behold, it came up, and I bid, and I wound my dad up, because my dad said, whatever you do, don't get it. Don't go over 120. We got it at 116. So I rang my dad, and I said, Dad, we won the house. He went, no, you're joking. I said, no, we did. I said, how much did you pay for it? I said, 150. He went, what? He's like, what are you on about? I said, no, I'm joking. We got it for 116. He was like, really? So he flew over. I had to put my deposit down, obviously, when the hammer went. He paid for the rest of it. And so, yeah, literally we completed in 30 days. We got in there, and me, my mum and dad literally turned it around. It was not like all ensuite, nothing like that. It was literally just where the downstairs reception room, convert that. And yeah, that was it. And we literally spent about 4 weeks, and obviously I had time off because it was over the summer. But my dad, down tools, flew over with my mum in a big transit van, had a load of furniture and stuff that they picked up. We kitted it out, but it was above the competition at the time. That's what kind of got us in.
And you, fucking hell, that's mad. That's absolutely mad, mate. And then you've obviously sort of kicked on from there.
Yeah.
And then how many do you own now?
24.
24 now.
24.
And then how many? Yeah. So sort of walk me through that process, because from that you've obviously seen a huge gap in the market. Yeah. And then you've sort of taken it by storm. Literally,
that was it. So obviously that was the first one. So that one I had to buy with my dad, because I didn't have an income or anything like that. It was literally, that deposit was just saved through side hustle like that e-commerce business I was telling you about. And so part of my degree was a year in industry. So that's when I went to London, and luckily I got it at the Walt Disney Company. So it was out of 2 basically. I got to final applications on the Walt Disney Company and Aldi, the supermarket. And Aldi offered me the job first, so I took that, and I was close to. I signed the contract, but I didn't send it off because I wanted to hear back from Disney, because obviously I wanted to work for Disney. And I thought, I'm just going to send it, because they were chasing me like, Craig, we've sent you the contract. Are you still interested? I said, yeah. And that was a great opportunity. It was a company car. It was working in the logistics teams at the head office. And yeah, it paid like 25 grand a year, which was great. And then the Disney one, it was in Hammersmith, West London. It only paid £16,000 a year, but I just thought, Disney in London, I need to go that way. That's where I want to go. And in the end, I got the call saying, yeah, we want you to work for us. So So yeah, that was the year in industry. And then while I was there, I saved up and saved up and saved up. And I saw another gap in the market in London, and that was obviously young professionals coming in, needing accommodation, and they want to be within like their like-minded environment. So so while this was all going on, I said to my dad, oh, by the way, I've put a little poster up down at the uni with your number on it. And he said, okay, that's fair enough. And then he kept getting calls. So my dad was like, look, Craig, I'm busy. Like, can you? And I don't know who I'm speaking to. I think I spoke to this one person, the same thing. I've just repeated myself. Can you take care of this? And they're your friends. Can you put your number on it? So I thought, fine. So I went back up to the uni, changed all the posters. And while I was at uni, I was getting like regular calls. And I exactly like my dad, I was like, in between work, I was repeating myself constantly. So I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to set up a little website and then put pictures on there and all the information's on there. And then that's it. It saves me repeating myself. And so I had it rented out, but I kept getting the calls. And then one day I got a call from a landlord who found the website. And she left a message on the answer phone. And it said, hi, Craig, my name's Camilla. I remember it as if it was yesterday because it was the first one. I've got a Gillingham property. It's a HMO professional. And I want you to come and have a look at it to talk about management. And I was just like, whoa, I didn't expect this. This is just, I'm used to tenant calls. So again, I spoke to my dad, and he was like, well, just be honest with her. Like, if this is what you want to do, just say, look, yeah, you're an amateur, a professional landlord. This is how you manage your property, and then see what she says. What's the worst that can happen? So I was like, all right, cool. So I met up with her, and we met at the property. It was on King Street, which is a big house. And I thought, yeah, this is decent. And we're walking through, and she goes, look, between you and me, she goes, these tenants are driving me fucking mad. We've got him upstairs. He just smokes weed and blares music, and he pisses off all the others. We've got one woman who leaves mess, so they're complaining about her, and it's driving me nuts. Because I live in East London, I can't keep coming up here to sort this out. She said, you are literally like the last chance before I sell it. So I was like, all right, cool. So I said, yeah, I'll have a go at marketing this. And she literally gave me the keys there and then. And I was like, I'm pretty sure we have to sign like an agreement for this. Yeah. So I spoke to my dad. He spoke to his friend. He sent me a basic agent agreement. I sent that to her. She signed it back. And literally within 3 days, I had that house rented out to a group of friends of mine at uni as well. And then that's kind of the letting agency side of it, of where it all started. And I was only charging like something stupid, like 8% at the time. So yeah, that's where it all started.
Fucking hell. And for people listening, it sounds easy to get started in that. But what you've obviously glossed over is how much you've had to work your nuts off to actually get the initial deposit to start with. And obviously the stresses and the struggles that do come with purchasing the property as well. Yeah. And especially we're in a different time now. So what would your advice be to anyone that's starting out, or any lessons that you've learned?
So I'd say the basics is I like to give practical advice. So rather than like, just work hard, because how do you quantify that? So what I would say is just try and get your expenses as low as possible, and your earnings as high as possible, and get that gap as far as possible. And because ultimately what you need is money to make money, and that's what's helped me. Is like, and as well, what I was saying to anyone watching is that the gap that I saw in London is what I did. Is I did a rent to rent, but I didn't know. Obviously, that's what it's known as now. But back then, I just called it subletting. So basically, what I did is I went to a landlord who I knew the group of interns that were in there, and obviously they went back to uni, whereas I stayed on. That's something I forgot to mention, that Disney kept me on. I didn't go back to uni to finish my degree. Right, okay. So I stayed on. So I needed a place to stay. So I thought, you know what? Rather than rent like a £800 studio at the time, I'm going to rent a flat, and I'm going to rent out the other rooms. So I approached this landlord and said, look, Mrs. Landlord, I will take the whole house on from you. I will pay all the bills, do all the basic maintenance, but anything that goes wrong, like leaks in the roof or the boiler breaks down, that comes on you. And she went, perfect. So she went, yeah, I'm happy to do that. So in the end, I found 3 tenants who I sourced through Disney, so I knew they were good for the money. And I was charging them about $700 a room. So I was covering my living expenses to the point where I was covering my rent, I was covering my travel and my gym. So my expenses were basically zero. So that enabled me, all the money I was earning from Disney, although it was only 16 grand a year, which obviously you can't live on now, but back then that was kind of the norm. That was all disposable income, which I was putting to one side. And I was being smart with it, like going out, I wouldn't go mad. I'd, try and just stay on. Or worst case, whenever I was feeling a bit mad, I'd go on the Minesweep. just like, oh, that looks good. I'll try something like that. But, and just stuff like that, mate. Just like batching up on meals. So I remember another thing I used to do was go to Sainsbury's, buy the biggest chicken I could find. Extra large chicken, which is like £3.50. That's like the Sainsbury's version. Batch that up and then just chop that up, throw in some lettuce, have like chicken salad for like 5 days of the week, and then on the Saturday that would be really like touch and go whether it'd be like good enough to eat by then. But yeah, just stuff like that, mate. Just really taking it back and just because I knew that in order to buy another house, that's what I needed. Like no one was going to give me that money. I had to go and get it.
What about raising finance? Have you ever raised the finance yourself? From
other
investors?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was like quite recent actually. That was about November 2020. I started raising finance, and that was all through social media.
And then, as for the student accommodation, there's a lot of people that I suppose are going to be new to this. But what's the best way for people to find the students? Because there's a lot of courses and programs that will teach you how to do it, but from what you've said, you were part of that environment, which I suppose made it slightly easier.
Yeah, so it gave me the intel, right? So I knew there was a gap in the market because I was speaking to the students, and I was seeing it I was actually going around their houses, and I was thinking there was just there was nothing connecting the dots. So that's where I saw the gap. So absolutely. So it's obviously a bit difficult if you're just gonna like, all right, I'm gonna invest there. You have to do a lot of groundwork. I think that's where a lot of the intel comes in. So obviously, that'd be a bit freaky if you go, can I come around your house to have a look what are the conditions like? But I suppose the next best thing is going on listings on like Rightmove or Spare Room and having a look what the conditions are.
But even so, like what you've done with the management, with the first property that you got managed, you've managed to then straight away get that let out, which wasn't an easy job when you've got. Well, the first property you've just taken on, you've just purchased that, and then you don't know. A lot of people go, do you know what? No, it's a bit overwhelming. Yeah. And then you've just gone.
I've just went, I'll give it a go. Exactly, yeah. And that's the thing, just be open to saying, and I was quite young at the time, so I just thought, an extra 8% of 1,400 quid, that's what it was at the time, that'd be quite nice. Do you know what I mean? And that'll just add to the pot. And that's another thing, my circumstances were open to it because I was quite time rich and cash poor, so I was open just to get as much money as possible, and to the point where she had and this is where it all snowballed, Lou. So she had a sister who had like 3 properties in Gillingham, similar vibe. She did professionals, wasn't really working. She introduced her to me. She then gave me those properties. I rented them out, and then all in this time I'm doing my career in Disney. And then I went to auction to buy my first solo one. That's the one that was on Homes Under the Hammer, and so I had that. And then all of a sudden I've got 6 properties under my management. 2 of those were mine. 4 of those were managed. And then I thought, this is going really well. And I still had demand. And I was managing it. And then it started to grow, and it was a bit of a beast. And then by that time I got headhunted, and I moved to MTV at the time. And it was just getting ridiculous at that point. It was I turned my phone over during lunch break at MTV, and I'd have 50 missed calls, and I was like, fucking hell, this is gonna how am I gonna get back to all these? So this was new tenants, this was existing tenants, this was trades, this was landlords getting in touch with me. So I was running this business on my mobile phone and this poxy little website that I'd created. So but it was becoming a beast. And luckily, my mum and dad moved back over from Ireland at that point as well. So I got her to help with viewings because my dad was doing his own thing. So my mum was meeting people at these properties and viewing it out. So it was working quite well. But in the end, I thought, something's got to give because I'm just burning myself out. Because I was working 9 to 5 at MTV, but then 5 to 9 on the business. And so it was just all hours of the day. So I was juggling so much. And so, something had to give. And in the end, I matched my income from the properties, matched my MTV income. And it felt good. That was like financial freedom. And at that point, I'm thinking, well, they could sack me. They could make me redundant. and I'd still be sweet. And it was a really powerful mindset shift. And so yeah, and then that was the point. I gave my notice in, and cracked on. But another tipping point was there was an office as well. I got my office as well in Gillingham. That spurred me on. I thought, right, if I'm going to do this, I need a presence in Gillingham. I can't just be working from this website and a mobile. I need to step it up. And so there was this office literally 2 doors down from one of the properties that I own. And again, it's mad thinking about this, but my dad called me up one day and said, Craig, we've got to have you down this weekend because I've driven past Baden Road and one of the tiles on the roof's come away and I need your help getting up there, otherwise there's going to be leaks. So obviously I said, fine, I'll go down there Saturday morning, let's do it. So went down there, set up the ladder. My dad went up there, I was holding it for him, mixing up the cement because it was on the ridge, and it was the ridge tile, I remember. And I looked up and there was this office that was, well, it's not an office, it was a shop, and it was an alloy refurbishment one. It had been shut for years. It was just sitting there, and I thought, oh, what a great office! If I could get that'd be perfect location, because everywhere I buy is literally 5 minutes walk from uni. So I thought that'd be absolutely perfect. Anyway, derelict. It was always empty. Lo and behold, there I am holding my ladder. I looked up, the corner of my eye, someone's walking in the office. So my dad's up this ladder. I said, Dad, just wait there a minute. And so I ran up to the office, poked my head through the door, and I said, hi. And there's a woman there. I said, I'm so sorry to barge in. I said, my name's Craig. I'm looking to expand my business, and this would be an ideal office for me. I was just wondering if it was for let or if you had a price in mind. And she went, you just speak to my husband. He's just through the back. And she took me through the back, and his name was John. He said, hi, mate. And he went, well, you're in luck, son. The guy who owned this, he's owed me money for about 6 to 8 months. We've just got the property back, and so it's yours if you want it. And I said, well, perfect. I said, well, look, I'm good with my hands. I could rent it because it was a bit of a dive. It was fucked in there. And I said to him, well, look, if you give me a good price, I'll do all the renovation. And he went, all right, sounds good. And then I was in there for about half hour. He bearing in mind my old man's up this ladder. Anyway, my old man walked in, he went, what the hell are you doing? I said, oh, I've just... I was like, Dad, this is John. John, this is my dad. And Dad was like, what the hell's going on? And it was the most surreal meeting. And I said, John said he'll rent me his shop. And then my dad's just like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what is going on? Because my dad was like, afterwards, my dad was like, you sure you want to do this? Like, having a shop's like a lot of expense. Like to him, this was a bit out of his comfort zone. And I don't think he felt that I was kind of ready for it. Yeah. But for me, I was like, look, if I don't grab this opportunity and make this office work, then someone else is going to see it, or it's going to, or another business is going to, and that opportunity's gone. Do you know what I mean? So that's why for me, I just thought, well, I might as well make the opportunity. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to MTV. That's worst case. That was my mindset. So yeah, that's how I got the office. So once I got that and I got the lease signed, again, that was my next project. So I renovate that with my dad. And then that was kind of like, right, I've got to hand my notice in the next 3 months because I'm paying rent on this shop and I need to be there Monday to Friday. And then, yeah, that was it. And then once I left the job, I had a big opening party, and that was when the letting agency was officially born.
But then you've not only done that, you've gone on the Homes Under the Hammer.
Yep, that was a big one.
That's a big feat, mate. So talk me through that.
Yeah, so my first auction solo. So my first one was with my dad's property. So this one was on my own. So similar situation, saved up. Had a bit of a setback because this one was with a mortgage in my name. Was the first one my dad paid cash. So there was a lot more hoops you had to jump through, and obviously this house was like in a bad way. So I managed to get the lender to come round. They valued it, and literally I was waiting for the offer. And I was ringing them, saying, when are you going to offer? Because the auction's in 5 days, it's in 4 days, it's in 3 days. And it was like 2 days before. And they said, oh, yeah, Craig, we've got an offer. But unfortunately, it's not what you want. You said the value was between 100 to 110, but they've come back with 95 to 100. So I was like, right, what does that mean? I said, well, they're only going to lend you up to that point. Including your deposit. And I was like, oh God. So in my head, I'm thinking, well, that means my maximum bid has gone from 110, where I reckon I'm going to get this, to 95. So I was like, oh, fuck's sake. So this is bad for, well, I'm going up there anyway. I've booked it off off work, let's go. So I went up there and I told my dad about it, and he said, well, you're not going to get that house for 95k. Like, the average house price at that point was about 110, 100. And I was like, well, I've booked it off. I'm going to go up there, registered. And ended up getting it, but not 95. I got it for 97 and a half. So I thought, even though it's 95, I thought, what's $2.5 grand? I'll get that from somewhere, whether I have to eat nothing for for a month. I'll get that money. So I ended up getting that at 97 and a half, and then that's where it all began. That was the first one, and Hams and the Hammer were there. And obviously I was watching them, and they were approaching all the big guys, like going for 300 grand properties. I thought they're not going to be interested in someone like me. And then after the Hammer dropped, I went and registered and paid the deposit, wrote a check, and I got a tap on the shoulder, and it was this woman who was approaching all these developers. She goes, look, I think her name was Sue from the BBC. We do Hams and the Hammer. We'd love to feature you on one of the shows. Would you be interested? And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because obviously Hams and the Hammer was a big show. I used to love Hams and the Hammer. I used to get a lot of inspiration. I used to watch it with my dad. He used to size himself up with the other developers on there. So he's like, oh, why have they done it like that? Or they paid way too much for that. So to be on that was a big thing, especially on my first solo project. So it was big.
So then, obviously, what were the lessons you learned from that particular project?
Oh God, so the stress is juggling, trying to juggle. So at the time I was still working for Disney at that point, and I was taking sick days. I was taking holiday days. Thankfully, I had my dad and my mum over again to help me. But yeah, it was tough. It was stressful, really, really stressful. To be honest, because there was so much that needed doing, and it was like, okay, I've kind of budgeted this, and I forecasted this in terms of the timelines. But when in a house like that, you take down the wallpaper, and then the wall would come down with it, all the plaster would come down with it. It's like, oh God, yeah, it was all chipboard, exactly. Yeah. So it was like a can of worms behind it, and that was every single room. And so my dad was like, well, you better tell Holmes and the Hammer, because you had a dead, they say we're going to be here on this date. So I had to keep pushing it back to the point where they're like, look, we need to come in at this date. So to be fair, it was 95% done at that point. But yeah, the first one was very stressful. I remember that. There was a lot of stress. Obviously my dad was stressing because he wasn't getting paid for it. He was just doing it, and he had things to go back to over in Ireland. Because that's when he came back over on, but I think my granddad turned ill, so it was just stressful around. So yeah, it was a lot of stress, but we pulled together. That was another thing I got from it, is that I pulled in every weekend, every evening even, I'd be down there. The girlfriend at the time, I said to her, look, I've got this going on, you're probably not going to see me for a long time. Even she roped in her dad as well. That was really kind of her. So yeah, it was just a bit of a team effort.
I was just about to ask that. Has it had an impact on your relationship as it is now, with how sort of relentless you are?
So yeah, that was with another girlfriend. Obviously, my wife now, I didn't know at that point. But when I met Danielle, who's my current wife, I kind of thought, right, I'm gonna say it now. I'm gonna give this disclaimer that look, I'm a business owner. I'm into property. There'll be times where I need to be in certain locations. I need to give 110%. So to that day, I still hold it to her. Whenever she gets pissed off that I'm not home by a certain time, I was like, well, I did tell you when we first met. And she's like, oh, fine. How many times are you going to say that? But yeah, absolutely. But I was like, my slogan is big up the grafters, right? That's what I'm known for, working all hours of the day to get shit done. And then obviously Sienna came into the mix, and that's kind of all changed now. In a good way. Obviously, as soon as Danielle found out she was pregnant, obviously we had the chat. She was like, well, look, just to make you aware, as soon as Sienna's here, I'm going to need your help. You're going to need to be home at 5:30, bathing her, putting her to bed, all the rest of it. And so, yeah, that was a bit of a shock, because I thought, oh, yeah, I'd be doing that. But bearing in mind, I didn't usually stop work till about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock sometimes. So that was a big shock to the system. But I did it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And I absolutely love it. And she's at that age where she's got nothing but love and cuddles, and yeah, it's great. But it was a shock. Yeah, a real shock.
A good shock or a bad shock?
Neither or. I see. It was just a shock to my working patterns. It's just because your time is not your time anymore, and I use time to get stuff done, and it's like, oh God, I've got to down tools before. Whereas I thought, I've got another 3-4 hours to crack this out. Got no one to kind of report into, but now it's like Sienna needs me to be home at this point, and Danielle needs me to be home at this point. So now I've counteracted that slightly, where I get up even earlier.
Yeah.
So I get up at like 5, get the gym, out the door for 7, and then I've got those little bit more hours to kind of crack on. Whereas I started and it was just, and as well with the baby, you get a lack of sleep, and that was a big shock.
It's tough, especially when you've got kids. And again, another question would be, has it impacted your life? Of course it will do. It doesn't matter if it's a positive way or a negative way, but having 3 myself and then running a business, it doesn't matter if you've got a big business or a small business. When you've got kids, it does impact it massively. But when you've got kids, and it does, like you've just said there, lack of sleep. And when you're running, say, your business now, you've got to be there for your partner, because predominantly they're going to be the main caregiver. And if you're out from, say, 8 till 8, you can't do that anymore. But for me, I can only speak on my behalf. I wanted to be at work. I wanted to be the main provider, and it's very hard I'm probably going to get shot down, but I'll say it. I wanted to be the main provider. I wanted to continue to work. That was very hard to just take a step back and stop. I don't know what your feelings.
1,000,000%, mate. Like when you're at the top of any business, the buck stops with you. And this property venture, like I said, I've told you, it literally stemmed from me when I was 20 years old. I'm now 34. This is like my life's work. I've built up my whole reputation of being a worker, a grafter. I won't disappoint you. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something. Then all of a sudden, in order to do that to the level that I do it, and this is to tenants, this is to landlords, this is to investors, this is to tradespeople. There's a lot of people in that circle to manage, and then all of a sudden your day's just like gone from this like to half, and like on top of the lack of sleep and stuff like that. So yeah, it's stressful. It is really, really stressful, and you have to adjust. But some people get it, some people don't. But it's tough. It is tough.
Have you ever suffered with anxiety because of that?
I'd say yes. I'd say there's been very few times like when I'm close to burnout, like when I've just done stupid hours. It could be because refinance needs to happen. It could be because with the deadline with the students. So as you know, with students, they move in September, so we've got to get it done then. So there's been a few times. And again, I don't want to let the investors down. I don't want to let the tenants down, because as soon as you start that tenancy on a bad foot, whether it be, even if it's not cleaned properly, because we've left it too late, that anxiety, because I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, I know that they're going to have you over a barrel the moment they start that tenancy, and I just don't want that. So it's me that's in there that's scrubbing. Sometimes it's me, because like, with all due respect, no one's going to, unless I pay them stupid amounts of money, which again counteracts the whole thing. I just think, fuck it, I'll do it. And to be fair, no one probably does it half as good as me anyway, once you focus on it. I have suffered from anxiety, but those are like when I'm close to burnout, I think. Yeah.
And it's the old curse, isn't it? No one can do it as good as me, but you have to cut that branch off. You have to let someone else do it. And especially when you've got kids and you've got a partner, then you should go, do you know what? That's the cut-off point. I am going to spend time with them and turn my phone off. It's going to be on Do Not Disturb. But in the back of your mind, your partner's probably sitting looking at you going, is he in the fucking room? He's probably not in the room, but there's no way of telling he's not in the room.
So funny you say that. I was literally at like some like Christmas lights thing last night, in fact, and we were just literally having that conversation because like my phone's pinging and stuff like that, and Danielle was just like, "Look, are you here or what?" And I was like, "Sorry, I put it away." But and that's it. Yeah, I totally.
No, it's hard, and I can pretty much every single guest, and it's such a common theme that whenever there's pressure involved, that you've often got that sense of tightness or anxiety or pressure building up inside, and you go, do you know what? I'm here, I want to be present, however, it's just building up inside, I've got to get it dealt with. And often the way we deal with it is going, default, we deal with it ourselves, because that's what we've always done.
Yeah.
Male or female. And and it's just interesting to see. It's fascinating for me because I like to hear the coping mechanism, how everyone does it and how everyone copes and deals with different situations, because everyone's is different. But yours is obviously in your section, your sector, and obviously different pressures as well. But with your family, it's slightly different.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like, I totally agree with the saying, behind every like successful, powerful man, there's an equivalent woman on the other side. And Danielle's amazing. Like, she supported me from day one, and she's the best. She's everything and anything I could ask for. Supportive. She's there when I need her. I mean, I must be so. I take the piss sometimes in terms of coming home late. But she's there to hold things together at home, and that's invaluable. And that's actually changed my mindset in terms of what projects I take on, to the point where I used to love taking on projects which needed tons of work. Now I think, oh, that's a lot of work. I know I'm not going to be able to give 100%. Whereas before I'd give it everything, because I know. So now I kind of look for, maybe I'm going to leave a little bit more money in the deal, but that means I get a bit more time. And the pressure's a little bit less.
So she calmed you, I suppose.
Yeah, just changed my perspective. Like, do I really want to back to brick refurb that's tight in the year, that's only got like 4 months to complete, or do I just buy this already done, already singing, that just needs a paint job? Yes, all right, the numbers aren't amazing, but the stress level's there. It means I've got my time. Now I'm at that position, I suppose. I've got that luxury of thinking like that. But yeah, I'd say I definitely factor that in now, yeah.
So talk to me about it. There's a couple of things now. Probably about, good couple of months back, when you was investing in crypto, you was making quite a few quid.
Yes,
and I would imagine you've lost a few quid as well.
Yes, mate, yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so crypto was an interesting one. So again, Sienna was, I've been following crypto for a while. So Sienna was born in 2020 in February. And 11th of Feb, and yeah, before that I was seeing crypto go up, and I thought, I like the sound of this. It's like anti-banks, and it's decentralized, and yeah, I kind of saw its value in a weird nerdy kind of way, and then I was watching people make some good money. I was following it, the prices, and then I thought, right, I'm going to invest, and then for whatever reason I backed out of it, and then I remember Danielle waking me up in the middle of the night. She was like, as in like she was pregnant at this time, heavily pregnant. And she was like, Sienna's just, well, she didn't know what Sienna was called then, but she was like, the baby's just kicked us. And I said, you all right? And she was like, yeah, I'm fine. And at that time I thought, going through all the lessons, this is Braxton Hicks. This is just turn over, baby, you'll be all right. And then I dozed back off, she dozed back, and then about 5 minutes later, the same thing happened. I just hear her go, And I was like, you all right? And then at this time, I'm awake, so I'm like, fine. And then all of a sudden, this message come up about crypto gone up in price again. I was like, right. And this was during lockdown. Like, everything was just locked down then. So I thought, I'm not going to go on holiday this year because of the situation. We're all locked down, all the flights have stopped. So I thought, do you know what? I'm going to put my holiday budget into crypto. I think I was still half asleep at this point, but I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I just threw like $2,500 into crypto, into Bitcoin, and then I woke up the next day and it had gone up by like 500 quid plus. I thought, this is amazing, this is incredible. So yeah, then that's when I started like WhatsApping my mates, going, mate, this Bitcoin is amazing. I've just earned 500 quid overnight. It's incredible. And I think it was about 100 quid actually. It was 100 quid, and then over the space of a month, it went up to like 500 quid or it was mad returns anyway. So that's when I was like, oh my god, this is turned my head. Like, I can't get returns like this anywhere, including property. So yeah, that's when I started promoting it. Obviously, I've got quite a large following, and I like to be a man of value. So I started promoting it on there and saying to guys, look, I've put my own money in, so I can talk from my point of view. This is how much I'm earning, and I was quite open. And then it just got. And then I started looking at the other altcoins, started doing research on that, and then there was one coin in particular which I like the sound of. It was called Decentraland, which is like this virtual reality kind of world.
Ridiculous, mate. Yeah, what you done with that?
Yeah, oh my god, that was like the best. And so I put more money into that. And then, yeah, obviously, now on reflection, looking back, that was just all part of the COVID bubble and the quantitative easing that was all going through the whole planet at the time. And people were just throwing it into that. And because of the easy access of it, it's all on your part. And it was just ballooning. And some of the returns, honestly, it was absolutely incredible. So from memory, I think I made about, in the space of that year, it must have been about 40,000 at one point. Up, it was just like unreal
from the initial 2.5 you put in.
Oh no! So I was putting more in after that. Yeah, so I was like, right, instead of putting money in the banks, keeping money in the banks, which I used to be quite liquid. I just thought, well, it's earning fuck all in the banks. I'm not buying anything at the moment. Let's put it into crypto because this is just mad. And if it does go down south, then I'll pull it out. And so. So yeah, that's kind of it, and and then obviously we saw some major drops, and that was the thing that really opened my eyes. Is like, shit, this is really volatile. Yes, there's some high highs, but there's also crazy lows, and so yeah, that's kind
like
of
there is now.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
what are your thoughts on it now?
So long-term hold. So just for the record, I'm probably about 10 grand down in it, all in all. But yeah, it's just a long-term play for me now. I'm not going to cash out because once you cash out, and if I really need the money, then I'll cash out. But I don't really need the money. I'll just let it sit there. If anything, I'll say to Sienna, look, this is I've done it when you were born. This is your inheritance. I'll pass it on to her. Here's the keys for it. There you go. This is yours. Yeah. Don't ask for me anything again. But yeah, it's just one of those things. So I invest in it with good intention, but I still think it's got legs. I've dodged a few bullets, like with the whole Luna stuff, like the major losses. The one bad bet that I had was Safe Moon, I think it was. That was like some crazy like meme coin, where it was a lot of hype about it. So yeah, I put about 5 grand in that, and that's probably worth about, I don't know, £100 now. So yeah, that was a big loss. But then to counteract that, like Decentraland, I made like 11 grand off that. Yeah. Ethereum, I've made some good money on. So yeah, it's all swings and roundabouts. But yeah, I've dodged a few bullets with regards to like the Lunas and like the FTX scandal. I didn't invest in that platform. No. So yeah.
Do you think we'll become a cashless society in the end?
I think so, mate. Long term.
Yeah.
I think, a good 10, 15 years. I think
it's inevitable, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah.
I mean, so.
If you look at the patterns now, just like the subtle stuff, like banks, what are they doing? They're reining it right in. They're closing down all the branches. So yeah, it's...
Looking at your predictions, and the reason again I asked yourself is you've made some ridiculous predictions years ago that are coming to fruition now. I mean, elaborate on that, mate, because I think you made it in 2018 and you popped up on your story again. You shared it. It's about the property market, the base rates.
Yeah.
And that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So basically, like I said, so when I was at uni, so again, going back to what I learnt there, it was I did an economics module. And I'd say out of all the business modules that I studied, there was organisational structure, there was entrepreneurship. That was a good one. But the main one I really got value from was the economics one. We had quite a good teacher, and I got a first in that, and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, one of the modules was about to do with inflation and how to spot bubbles and what the government do to counteract it. And basically, it was like it was getting ridiculously like my properties were earning me 30 grand a year doing nothing, just sitting there, and I'm watching them go up £30,000 in 1 year. And I thought, this is crazy. Like this is stupid. The government have got to increase interest rates, and that's when like I started to go right. People aren't talking about this, and I'm going to these courses, like these one-off events. No one's talking about this, and so I thought, I'm going to start talking about it, and then. Yeah, and then that's kind of where it's kind of spiraled from. But then people are like twisting it, saying, "Oh, you're very doom and gloom." And I'm like, my friend, I'm not being doom and gloom. I'm just telling you how it is. Here's the data. Here's the clues. This is kind of my hypothesis of what's going on. And to be fair to me, it's played out exactly how it said. Yeah. So
you've been bang on, maybe a week or so out. But no one else was talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been the only one that's actually gone and put your money where your mouth is.
And the thing is as well, it's for a lot of people's agenda. I can see why people think it's bad for business, and people don't talk about it because, again, looking out and looking at what's just happened, the last 10 years, and again, this is a complete fluke of when I first started, that 2008 crash, from then until now, in my opinion, looking at it, it's been the best time to invest in property because what's the major driver? It's the interest rates, right? What we borrow money for. So in that space of time, I've gone hell and leather, applying my resource, borrowing, refinancing on those low rates. I can't do that now. Like now that they're
ridiculous.
Yeah, now that they're going up. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't know that was the one, probably a lifetime opportunity, but that's what I class it as now. And now that the agenda's changed, we're in that transition phase. In like 1 or 2 years, I think people will be like, actually, yeah, property is probably not what it used to be. But I'm kind of like, well, yeah, we're there now, guys. Like, you need to wake up to that.
So what would you say is your greatest achievement to date?
My greatest achievement? Wow. Greatest achievement, I have to think about it. I've never been asked about that before. I say it's my life's work, you know. Like the whole property thing. Like my career in property, I'd say is my greatest achievement. Why? Because I've accumulated wealth that I think is going to be life-changing for my family, and I've safeguarded them. Social media has enabled me to have a voice and show people what I do, and they've got inspiration from that. This is how we've met, right? Through social media. I've met some amazing connections. So I'd say, yeah, my greatest achievement has got to be my life's work, which is property.
You've got a very caring side about you that you always want to give back.
Thank you, mate.
Which is, it's lovely to see. And obviously, it's obviously I'd love to give back to people as well. You don't often see it in people that are in property. I must admit, there is a people that want to invest, they want to earn their money. But yeah, no, it's brilliant to see that. What has been, or what sort of drives you? I've got a feeling I know what you're going to say.
So I just want to, I don't know what, deep down, so digging deep down, it's not the money. It's just, I don't know, I just want people to be proud of me, you know? Like, I've come from, like, the lowest point, like, so from the worst school in England, do you know what I mean? So again, that mentality of like, your future aspects is daunting. Like, you could, no wonder people have turned out the way they have, because it's like, well, I'm at the worst school in England. What fucking chance have I got? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I've started at that point, and so I'm just loving that climb, just to see how far it goes, and giving people inspiration. And like, the fact that people take time out of their day, Lou, just to message me, saying, "Oh, Craig, I found this really interesting," or "I love your positivity. It's led to this." That's, like, I love that. Like, I strive for that stuff, because no one has to do that. They've taken time out of the day just to recognise it and reach out and say. And I think that's really nice for them.
It's powerful, mate. And for you, is there a ceiling? That's all.
No, mate, I don't think there is. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and yeah, just seeing how big I can get it, really. Yeah.
Brilliant, mate. And what about the best piece of advice you've received?
Best piece of advice I've received? I'm going to have to think about that one. Probably from my dad, somewhere along the line. It's like, do you know what? It was actually it was a quote from Einstein, and it was and this is how I kind of think. I try to think 3 steps ahead. It takes a clever person to solve a problem, but it takes a wise person to avoid it in the first place. I like that. And I really like that. It's because it's like, yeah, okay, I can solve this problem fine, but if I can avoid it entirely, then that's even better.
Take me back to a time in your life where you've actually implemented that.
So I do it all the time. So I do it at work. So if I think, I know contract-wise, I try to make the contracts airtight. I triple check it, just because, okay, I could let them I could maybe not double check someone's work. Like, for example, a colleague, and there's a mistake. I could correct that mistake, do an amendment to the contract. Or I could triple check it and make sure that there's no mistake and avoid that entirely. Do you know what I mean? So it's those little things. Or builders, for example, I could leave them to their own devices, and then if they fuck up, then I could say, look, you need to redo this, or I could go there after they've done it, inspect their work, and pick it up on the dot, so that it's so that yeah, I can avoid it. So that's that wisdom there to come into it.
Yeah, so you're thinking way ahead.
Way ahead. I don't want that problem. I don't want it. I'd rather avoid it.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. But what's a life well lived for yourself?
Oh, wow. I think I've had a great teenage years. Partied hard. Got some great memories. Got some great stories. Now that the family's here, it's like just make sure Sienna's does well. She looks up to me as a role model, and then I just want to just have a happy, fulfilled kind of life. So because now I'm thinking, for me the exit plan's 50. So all these properties, they're all nice now. So for me the exit plan's 50, and then I want to just have enough money just to chill out, focus on Sienna. I've also got another bun in the oven as well. So when that baby comes, focus on them.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then just what's really quite vivid in my thoughts is like when, again, I've always been tried to think quite wise for my time, is that when I'm laying there on the deathbed, I've got everyone around me, and it's all just positive, and they're all looking back. We're looking back at a positive vibe. I think that's quite vivid.
Well, does it come down to money for yourself, or does it come down to what you've just said there, the amount of people that are around you remembering you for who you actually are?
Yeah, no. So the money's just, if you look at my goals, none of them are really money orientated. It's like I want that, because the money will come.
Yeah,
the money will come once you've hit that space. Then that's just the natural flow. So I think I don't focus on the money. For me now, and it's changed. Maybe when I was younger, I was all about saving money. But now you become older and wiser, and more people come into your life, especially kids. It's about them, and then you just want to be remembered, and can't try and leave your stamp before you should.
And what about that fulfillment? What does that look like for yourself?
So for me, I want to be well travelled. I want to have stories. I want, so when my grandkids come and see me, or they point to a picture on the wall, it probably won't be a picture, probably be online or something. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I've got a great storytelling. It gives them inspiration. But that's how I want to live. That's how I want to live. And that's kind of that's the image. That's the dream. Is to have them looking up to me, thinking I want to be like him. That's powerful.
What about the happiest moment of your life? What's that been?
Happiest moment is probably when Sienna was born, to be honest with you. It was incredible.
Did you cry?
I did, yeah. I don't cry often at all, and it was just like I couldn't believe it. I just could not believe it. It's weird. It's just so weird. Like only a father will understand this feeling. But for your first kid, it was just like, wow, this is It's just a little bundle. This is so much love for this little thing. It's crazy.
This is one of the best feelings in the world, and it's so hard to explain and articulate. But you've got to, and the mother.
And between the three of you, the three of us at that time, it's just, and they're healthy, and Danielle's fine. It's just like, oh yes,
yeah.
We're
overwhelmed with emotion.
Yeah, overwhelmed. That's the word I describe it. You're just overwhelmed with love.
Brilliant, mate.
It's
and then
nice.
The last question I always ask to wrap the show up with is Craig, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, mate. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I'm happy.
Thank you very much, mate. And all I can say, mate, and I don't normally continue after that, is certainly we're all proud of you, mate. You've done a fantastic job to get from where you are to where you currently are now.
Thank you, mate.
There's a lot of people on social media, and I know that there's a lot of people that would send a message for different reasons, but there's a lot of people that look up to you, myself included. But thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Lou. Appreciate that.
Appreciate it.